welcome back. This is From Battle to Business with your host, Dean Van Dyke. And today I am fortunate to have Dr. Kuni Beasley. Welcome, Dr. Beasley.
Greetings. Good to be here.
Glad to have you. Glad to have us. So in 60 seconds or less, tell us who Dr. Beasley is.
Well, what I do right now is my mission statement is to prepare, package, and position students for college success. So people come to me if they want to get into college, they want to be able to pay for college, or if they want to go to a service academy like West Point or get into an Ivy League or high-profile school. What we do is we prepare, package, and position them. Our job is to provide our clients with the greatest range of options, choices, and opportunities for college.
Nice. Well, I know there's, on college campuses today, it's our youngest is, well, he paused his education as a result of COVID. The whole online learning experience was not that great. But so I know you're a veteran, and I'd love to understand how your service helped shape who you are today.
Well, I grew up in a military family. And the 8th grade, I went to military school to the Marine Military Academy in Harlingen, Texas, which is one of the reasons I'm in Harlingen now, is because it was always on my bucket list to come back to the Marine Military Academy, teach a year, and coach football. And so that's what I did. I came down here to do that. Ironically, when I left, 20 of the parents hired me to be their college counselor. So that's
Nice.
why I've remained here. But I went to the Marine Military Academy. I actually graduated early, started college at 16, earned an Army ROTC scholarship, plus 11 other full scholarships. I was really good at SAT and ACT. I was the first student at the school to max the ACT. And then I got an Army ROTC scholarship. I really wanted to go to West Point, but you had to be 17 to go to West Point, and I was only 16. So they offered me Army ROTC scholarship. They said basically pick the school. As long as you're accepted there, we'll pay for it. So I went to TCU, Texas Christian University, who are, by the way, is playing Texas Tech right now.
Horned Frogs.
Horned Frogs. We had a great year last year. This year's not too good. Anyway, and then I was an ROTC there, got commissioned, was in the field artillery.
Hoorah!
Yeah, boom. Was sent to Germany. And it was really ironic. My military experience was just really strange. I was in Germany. This is after 6 months of active duty. I'm sent to Germany. For 6 months, I was in a line unit, and for 1 year, I was placed on staff. And then after 1 year on staff, I was accelerated into a line command position. I was 23 years old. Wow. I was placed in command of an 8-inch nuclear artillery battery. I had 18 Hiroshima-sized nukes. My first sergeant was older than my father. He had sons younger than me. In fact, when I was placed in command over 7 people senior to me, and I think I was 3 months in grade as a first lieutenant. Command position as a captain's position, usually a seasoned captain, 5 to 7 years, and I had only spent 6 months in a line unit, and there I was thrown into command. It was a very traumatic experience, and I need to write a book on that one. Some of this stuff is R-rated, but we had drug problems. I had to clean up the drug problems. I had a convicted murderer who had enlisted with the false name, just all kinds of problems. The first time I remember, the battalion XO patted me on the shoulder because I was sitting there. We had somebody die in our barracks, and I'm just sitting there hanging my head. And I go, why is this all hitting me now? He tapped me on the shoulder and says, don't worry, Kuni, you're under the 90-90 rule. I says, what's that? It says 90% of the problems for your first 90 days can be blamed on the previous commander, And then I turned the unit around. My first OER, 5 months into the unit, the battalion commander put down in my OER that I had commanded the best battery in the battalion, and then the colonel over him indicated I was the best battery commander in the battalion, and my unit was the best unit in the battalion. Turned the thing around in 5 months and did my full command tour. Now, what had got me into this education business was when I was a staff officer. Prior to that, I was also the test control officer, and one of the missions they gave me was to find opportunities for soldiers to get college credit. So I started doing research, and there was a thing back then called Bear's Guide. It was a doctor, I can't remember his first name, his last name was Bear. He had done all this research on where you could get correspondence school degrees and things like that. And so I started following him, and then I was working at that time with New York Regents, which has evolved into Excelsior College. And I think they hold the record for the highest number of servicemen getting their degrees through that program. And
Okay.
so I worked with them on getting that and understanding the whole process of accumulating credits. And in fact, you had a lot of Vietnam residual people who had gotten commissioned but hadn't finished their degrees. And so they needed to find a way to finish the degrees, and we developed a plan on how to do that. That was all within that 1 year as a staff officer, and I kept up with it until, fast forward, I get married, I have kids, I got to put them in college, and I'm saying I got to figure out a way to do this. So I got out the books and I just started figuring it out. And so my first daughter came along, and she had great GPA, terrible test scores, and we tried to get her to bump her test scores, but she was also all state in voice, all state in saxophone, and all district as a volleyball player. And so they offered her first initially a half volleyball and a half music scholarship. And then she said, I'm not going to play ball. And I said, how are you going to pay for it? She said, I'm going to take loans. And I said, no, you're not. So I went back in and renegotiated. So we got it all paid for. Not only did we all get it all paid for, but after she enrolled, got into the dorm, got everything together, they sent us a check for $1,500. So I
Nice.
said, there's something here. So I started getting into it and started developing background in it and began to understand how to prepare people to take tests, how to increase their scores, how to beat the test, and then how to leverage yourself in order to get into college. And so both my daughters at that time got full scholarships to college, didn't pay anything for college. And then parents started hiring me. I started my own school, which we started our own school in 1996. Eventually, it grew to 22 college prep academies across the country, from Springfield, Massachusetts, to Hot Springs, Arkansas, to Palm Springs, California. We built that out until about 2011. I started to downsize. It got too big. I spent 180 days on the road.
Wow.
I got too big, so we spun the schools off, downsized them, and then a lot of people wanted our college prep program because we were putting kids into college on full
Hmm.
scholarship. And our policy then was you had to be in our school to get it. And people said, just take it out and give it to the general public. So we pulled it out in 2010, provided it to the general public, had a marketing staff, and all of a sudden, boom, we get all these clients. We're actually making more money than having 22 college prep academies. We're doing a lot less work. Instead of trying to convince somebody to come to our school, they could just sign into
Right.
our program. And so it just basically took off from there. And we've got a series of strategies that people can use to find ways of either getting admitted to the colleges they want to get to, or getting scholarship money or getting funding. And most people come to us for funding. They want to figure out
Hmm.
how they can not have to pay for college. And we're batting about 96% full scholarships in that last 12 years.
That's pretty good.
So and there's ways of doing it, and the ways are relatively simple, but it's like, a brain surgeon say taking the tumor out is relatively simple, but again, there is some complexities to it that most people don't pick up on. But
Oh, sure.
but we've developed strategies so that when they come to us, we go through a process of finding out what's going to be the best school for them, what's going to be the best value.
Okay.
And we spend the first probably 2 sessions having to deprogram the parents, deprogram the kids, because they're operating in a lot of myth. If the parents went to college, they're reflecting on their college. I'm going, your
Right.
college isn't there anymore. I mean, the buildings are there, but when you walked around campus, you were looking in front of you. They're walking around with their phones, okay? There's a lot been changed. The cost of college has just skyrocketed. The student debt right now, a student who takes on debt to go to, let's say, a low-end private college will never be able to pay their debt off. It's just not
Wow.
going to happen. You've got people in medical school finishing medical school. I had a doctor contact me and trying to figure out how he can get out of the debt. Now, there are ways you can get out of the debt. We do advise people on that, but he was unwilling to do any of those. So he says, what do I do? And I says, make sure they take it out every month or they're going to come after you. And right now, you're going to finish paying off your debt when you're 63. So your entire professional life is going to be paying the government.
Wow. So what drives the cost of college? Because so our sons went to school, and COVID really opened our eyes when they said, hey, we're going to go remote and online learning, but you're going to still pay the full price.
Mm-hmm.
What drives that cost?
Well, what drives across is easy money. Any 18-year-old can sign for $40,000, $50,000 a year loan to pay for college. Okay, and because you have, Econ 101, because you have access to cheap money, you cause inflation, and that's what causes inflation, because nobody has said you can only borrow this much. With the Parent Plus loans and stuff, you can borrow up until the cost of college, and you can borrow yourself into oblivion because the money is easy, accessible, and cheap. You will have inflation, so it's running at 4 times the rate of normal inflation, and the colleges do this. That just if you've got this opportunity to make money, although they call themselves nonprofit, they still make money. They still have to maintain the buildings. They still have to devise, put all of these administrators in place to pay them $500,000 to be a co-assistant dean of something, gender studies or whatever. So it's causing inflation. I had a development director come visit me one time, and I kind of got on his case. I said, "You have increased tuition 40% in the last 3 years." I said,
Wow.
"Why?" And he said, "Because we can." That was his thing, because we can. He said we had 3,600 applications for 1,200 positions, and every one of them would be willing to take out a $40,000 loan to go to the school.
Wow.
That's where you get it. As long as the kids are willing, as long as the government gives them the money, as long as the kids are willing to take out the loans, the cost is going to continue to go up.
So what? Go ahead.
Well, that's just standard Econ 101.
Yeah, that access to cheap money is never a good thing. So what are scholarships? You talked before we hit record here about how your daughters went to school pretty much on full ride scholarships, but there's so many different things in that realm, scholarship realm. What are the most important variables?
Actually, there's not different things. First thing, if you want a scholarship, you target a school that gives a scholarship. Okay. Now, there are schools that give scholarships. The reason they give scholarships is they want to attract a specific types of students. Okay. There are schools that don't give scholarships because they don't have to, because people are willing to go there and pay full freight. Where I live down here in Texas, University of Texas and Texas A&M are the flagship schools. They do not offer scholarships. Now, they do have a couple of private scholarships you can apply for, but there are no institutional scholarships. However, if you go to one of the regional colleges, University of Texas at Dallas, University of Texas San Antonio, Texas A&M, one of their campuses, they offer very significant scholarships in order to draw you away from University of Texas or Texas A&M. What would get you into Texas A&M would get you a full scholarship, University of Texas at Dallas. So you begin to target the schools that give money away. Okay. Then on the other hand, you have like the University of Alabama. Okay. They have a very liberal scholarship program. A 32 ACT and a 3.5 GPA will get you $112,000 automatically at the University of Alabama. You can Google it. I've sent more than 100 kids to Alabama on that scholarship. Got 3 there right now.
Wow.
And you got similar operations at University of Mississippi, University of Kentucky, because you see, for example, Alabama wants to attract kids that have the high numbers. Reason for that is by law in Alabama, they have to take the farm boys in. And so because they have to take the farm boys in at the 19 ACT level by law, in order to maintain their numerical profile, they have to bring the kids in that have the high GPAs and the high test scores to maintain their profile. So they have an incentive of bringing these kids in. LSU has the same problem. They have to bring in a certain number of good kids in order to increase the ratio of what their profile is. UT and A&M don't have to do that. What they do is for example, Texas A&M will disperse the kids who they are required to take in based on the land grant situation. They'll disperse those to their regional campuses, West Texas A&M, A&M Corpus Christi, A&M Commerce. They'll disperse those. Now, their criteria is that you've got to be in the top 10% of your graduating class in Texas. If you're coming in from somebody else, you've got to, this is called a Plan B, you have got to have comparable scores to the median score of those who get the automatic admit. Okay? Now, a lot of those kids who get the automatic admit went to country schools who didn't have AP programs, they didn't get properly prepared. They're going to lose those kids by Christmas. Generally, when you get into these kind of schools, they know they're going to lose 30 to 35% of their freshman class. So they've
Wow,
got
it's
these
huge.
kids. What they do is they have these dogleg programs where they've got these kids who didn't make it in as freshmen, but they've got them dispersed to the regional campuses,
Okay.
set up to transfer in to fill those seats that they lost from the freshman class. And in some cases, all it takes is a 2.5 to get a guaranteed transfer in to some of these colleges. So we have for some kids, we do a dog leg. We send them to either a community college that's tied in with the university or one of the regional campuses. We get them up to a 3.5 so that they're attractive. Boom, they'll transfer in.
Wow.
Okay, there's a lot of strategies that have to go, and that's just one of many strategies that we have to play in order to do that. And so, in fact, the strategy is so common that at the University of Texas, they have a name for it. It's called the Capstone Program. How you go to one of the campuses and then transfer in all those vacancies of all the people who went to, Fluvanna High School and didn't make it. But they got to keep their bodies in, so that's how they do it. I mean, it's a business.
It is a business. Wow. Sounds more like a racket to me, but
yeah, it is
hey,
a racket.
We'll call
you
it
know
a
how
business.
to play it. If you know how to play it, then you play it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So what are some of the alternatives to college? Because we know trade schools have taken a hit. I mean, we don't have a lot of people coming out of the trade schools. Is that, I mean.
Well, micro, I like micro. In fact, my grandnephew got one of his scholarships to go to trade school. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Trade school. I mean, I'm going to say 10, 15% of the people I advise are not going to go to college. In fact, when I was at the Marine Military Academy teaching, there was a significant number of seniors who weren't going to college, and because they wanted to do something other than that. So I gave them my advice. Now, at the top of my advice is go join the military. Okay. First off, whatever you field you want to go into, like I had one kid who wanted to go in aircraft mechanics. I said, go into the Air Force. That way they'll pay for you to get aircraft mechanics. Plus they give you 3 hots and a cot. Okay.
Plus the GI Bill.
Plus the GI Bill. Plus if you go into Texas, you get this thing called the Hazelwood Act, which means if you enter the military from Texas, you return to Texas, you exhaust your GI Bill, you get to go to state colleges for free, and that's transferable to spouse and kids. I sent my last 2 daughters to state schools on the Hazelwood Act both times. Well, the one I sent to Texas Tech, her last 2 years there, the first time she went there, first year, we got $7,500 more than it cost to go. And the last time we got $12,000 more than it cost to go. I mean, I can show you the 1098s, okay? And so understanding that you can leverage that. So I told one kid, I said, you go through this process with the military, you enter from Texas, you come back from Texas, and said 30 years from now, you're going to thank me because your kids are going to go to college for free. Okay.
Wow, that's huge.
And there's ways of, again, understanding how the system works. So, we have a lot of kids who, well, let me give you an example. This is kind of an ironic example. I had twins. I had a girl, not personally, I had clients, girl and a boy twin. Okay. Now she got an ROTC scholarship. He really couldn't get his scores up, so he ended up enlisting. But we have a program, we tell them strategy that while you're enlisted, here's how you get your degree. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it's possible if you get your butt going, you can get a degree in 2 years, even if you're in the military. Accumulate your, and so he qualified, got enough hours that he qualified what was called green to gold. How they if you're on active duty, they'll mm-hmm. send you to college to finish out, and then you'll get commissioned. He's going to get commissioned before his sister, who had the ROTC scholarship.
Wow. I mean, I think the big challenge though for parents is just understanding all these variables, because I mean, there's so many different variables that are out there. Like the ones you hear about, right? Is if you go to like when I went to college, my kids could go to the college for the in-state tuition. I mean, you hear about that kind of stuff, but you don't hear about this Hazelwood stuff. You don't hear about the stuff that really, I mean, obviously.
Well, most people, they don't know. Okay, let me put it this way. When I work with, try to go to college, to high schools and stuff, you're working with high school counselors who are still paying off their student loans. They don't, to them, they never got into an elite college. They never got a scholarship. They don't know how to get scholarships. They have no idea. In their little universe, you take your student loans, you go to college. They don't know anything much beyond that. We call those people ambulance drivers because all they can do is take you from point A to point B and drop you off. Okay. Now in there, you got some people who know a few things, and they can probably give you some insight. We call them paramedics. And then you have some of us brain surgeons. Only about 20. I'm going to tell you, there's only about 25 of us in the country who are operating at this level. And so, and then, and we cross-level information a lot. We don't consider being in competition. In fact, sometimes if I've got a person who's can benefit better from one of these other people, I'll send them there. That doesn't happen very often, but there are some times when I said, this person is off my bailiwick. So, but you don't have a lot of people who understand this because to them it's kind of foreign. Even though there's lots of scholarships available, lots of opportunity, they're not aware of it because they didn't do it. They're still paying off their student loans. They don't know. And so as we come in, we tell them, there's some things that you need to understand. And because people, for example, there are families who don't file the FAFSA thinking, well, we make too much money. Well, no, nobody makes too much money to not file the FAFSA. Okay.
Agreed.
It's a free okay. Yeah, you file it because even if it's work study or something like that, or and there are strategies on how to use the student loan system as leverage. And I'll give you a couple examples. Okay, let's say, I've had NBA people as clients. I had Heisman Trophy winner as a client. I've had professional football players as clients, and these guys have enough money to pay cash. Okay, so but I counsel them. I said, okay, here's the situation. If you pay cash right now, that money's coming out of your portfolio. You're never going to see it again. I said, I said, how's your portfolio performing? And they'll go, we're sitting at about 9.5%. I said, okay, you're going to take this loan for 4%. Take this loan for 4%. Let your portfolio build, and then take the loan, and after 4 years, pay it off. You're still 3, 4, 5 points ahead. Okay, that's I have a lot of people who do that, and I've had them in Georgetown, Northwestern, a few other colleges, and they do that. Okay, another one is that if you are primed, for example, to go towards an employer who's going to pay off your loans. For example, there's a lot of federal programs that if you go work for the federal government, particularly in the healthcare industry, if you go into National Health Service or Veterans Administration as a nurse or something, they have programs that you'll pay your loans off. Okay, so it's okay. As long as you have a strategy, take out the loans, go work for them, and usually 5 to 7 years they'll pay your loans off. Okay. I had a doctor. I would say she was a client because of her kid, and then she told me, says, I've got all these loans. What do I do? And I said, well, you're under the age limit. You can join the Army Reserve as a doctor. They're going to send you to the charm school, and then you do your 1 week in a month and 2 weeks a year. And she actually got mobilized twice. All she did was backfill doctors that were forward deployed. She didn't forward deploy, but they pretty much let her go wherever she wanted to those 2 weeks, any military hospital in the world. She went to Frankfurt and Tokyo and, under 2 weeks. And after 7 years, they pay off all of her loans. I'm down in the Rio Grande Valley. They want doctors down here. So there are community action groups down here who are willing to pay off doctors' loans if they'll come down here. Wow. Okay, so you got to seek this out strategically and say, how am I going to do this? Now, I've got right now 4 kids I'm working on med school. They're either have already graduated or in their senior years. We're getting them positioned for med schools. And I'm saying, there's the AMED program. There's a government program that if you get accepted to medical school and you are otherwise qualified, to be an officer, they will commission you as an officer. They will pay you while you're in medical school and pay for your medical school. And you owe them 1 for 1 when you get out. Now, I've had several people do that. I've had several clients who came from that. And I said, was it worth it? And they go, yes, I had no debt. And when you're in military medicine and let's say you only stay 4 years, you're going to get 20 years of experience in those 4 years.
Agree.
Okay. So, there's all kinds of opportunities that people need to think about, because the first time when I say, you may want to consider going to the military, they think, well, I'm going to have to get in a trench and throw grenades. I go, no, you're going to be, you're not even going to be like MASH. Okay. No. You're going to be like after MASH. Okay. Because you're going to work in hospitals. You're going to have access to the top medical stuff, and you're going to get a lot of great experience, and, you're going to get it paid for. and there's not lots of opportunity. Plus, you have the Uniformed Services University. That the military has its own med school, and they're in Virginia, I think DC and Virginia, and you get paid second lieutenant's pay while you're there. So a lot of people don't look at you guys. They don't look at. Well, first off, people don't know.
Right.
And sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they don't care. They don't know. They don't care. They don't care. They don't know.
Right. That's true. Very true. Well, this has been a great conversation, and got to land the plane here. So I've got the hardest question you probably ever had to answer. But what are the 3 books you'd recommend to my audience, and why?
What 3 books? I don't know. Because none of this stuff is in a book. Maybe, well, if they'll hold off, I'll write the book. But none of this stuff is in the book, and whatever you would put in the book will be obsolete in 18 months.
True. Very true.
So I don't know of a book that I would go to. I would give them 3 things to do. Number 1 is start now. I mean, statistically, you need to be started by the first day of the 9th grade. Now, my program will go back all the way to the 6th grade. I've had 6th graders in my program. But you need to be in we're thinking about it. And I mean, a formal step-by-step program by the beginning of your freshman year in high school, because if not, you're losing $100 a day. So you need to start early. You need to get things done early. You need to start testing early. You need to wrap up your SAT and ACT test by the end of your junior year, or you're not going to be competitive.
Sure.
And so our program is that we get everybody with your go to college GPA and your go to college test scores by the end of the junior year. That's what we target. How to build your portfolio. You need to build your resume by being with the President's Volunteer Service Program, so that you're getting not only recognized. Say, for example, you're going to put in your resume, I worked at the food bank in the soup kitchen, or I received the President's Volunteer Service Award from I work at the food bank in the soup kitchen. One is a local, one is a national. Because when you're on the application, you put down national awards, things such as congressional award. You want to start your congressional award freshman to sophomore year. I had a student who was a homeschooler upstate New York, did the congressional award, got his gold medal awarded to him by his congressman. Congressman said, "What are you doing for college?" He says, "I'm trying to get into Cornell." Happened to be a Cornell grad, wrote him a letter of recommendation. Boom. That's what pushed him over the edge to get into Cornell. So you've got to be able to strategically position your students. So there's a whole process involved, but you got to start early. A lot of people will come to me beginning of their senior year, and there's not a lot I can do. I said, hey, well, you're supposed to be a miracle worker. And I said, yeah, loaves and fishes miracles I can perform. But if you want me to raise the dead, you got to spot me the body. Okay. And so, but the sooner you start, you want to start soon. You don't want to, people start too late and they do things and they wait too long. And an average kid doing above average work starting out as a freshman will do better than a brilliant kid who has done nothing his senior year. I've had second quartile kids get better college offers than valedictorians, because the valedictorians simply didn't do the work.
Wow. Well, where can my audience go to learn more about Dr. Beasley and all this amazing work you're doing?
Well, I'm at BeasleyCollegePrep.com. It's my website. You can set up. All of your folks will give them a free consultation, unless I get a stampede, and we'll do a special webinar for them. And I've had stampedes in some of these podcasts, and so we set up a webinar for them as opposed to taking them individually. So they can come to us, and we will give them a free consult and tell them what the availability are. And we, a lot of people wonder what our price is, and I don't tell them price. I tell them ROI, and we're batting about 800 to 1,000% ROI.
That's not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Not too bad. So we look at because I tell them, you're going to spend this money anyways. And in fact, you're going to spend twice as much this fall when you put them in college. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Wow. Well, again, this has been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot. I wish I'd have known this 20 years ago, maybe more than a few decades ago.
I have yet to run into a person who hadn't said that. Wish I'd have known this so many, or caught you earlier, or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, it's true. There's just so many different things to think about. And because my oldest went on a full ride ROTC scholarship, was trying to get into West Point. He got selected as, I don't know what they call it, backup for West Point. Alternate. That's what it was. And And then ultimately applied for ROTC and got a full ride scholarship. Now back
Mm-hmm.
then they didn't pay for everything. Here now I think they've changed it. They pretty much
Well,
pay
it
for
depends
everything.
on depends on the school, because Uncle Sam pays retail. The schools, in order to attract the Uncle Sam retail dollars, I mean, where I went, TCU, they tossed in room and board if you had an ROTC scholarship, because Uncle
Uh,
Sam pays retail.
yeah,
And so there's a lot of colleges that do that. And then, and it also depends how you configure other financial aid you can get beyond the scholarship.
that makes sense. That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Well, as I always like to do, I love to give my guests the final word. So I'll turn that over to you. Again, greatly appreciate having you on, and learned a lot.
You know, I'm glad to be able to be of service. Dean, I was glad to have you here, but I tell anybody, start now. Start now. The only time you control is now. Start now.
Very true. Very true. Well, thank you, Dr. Beasley. It's been a great having you on as a guest, and I look forward to hearing more about your amazing work.
All right. Thank you for having me on.